All right, here we are, California, with one of my absolute favorite surfcasters. This is Ryan Dunlap. Me and Ryan met 5 years ago in ICAST. We were both working for Lamaglass, and I felt an instant connection with Ryan. It's something when you're crazy meets another crazy, but then that crazy out-crazies your crazy, and then you try and out-crazy each other. But Ryan's one of those guys that just couldn't out-crazy. So just a quick story. We went tarpon fishing. I was like, yo, dude, I know where there's some tarpon at. Ryan's like, yo, let's pack up this booth and hit it. We get out there, tarpon are blowing up. Sick day. We say, let's do this for 2 days. And 2 days for Ryan turned into 2 weeks, which turned into almost 2 months. And starting off, they found Ryan was sleeping on the beach, and the cops came up. They thought he was homeless. Looks kind of homeless. They were gonna arrest him for being a vagrant. And then fast forward 60 days, and the cops are picking him up like, yo, Ryan, bites down the beach, throw the surf rod in the back. And they're ripping down the coast. And that's Ryan, man. That's the best way I could describe you is, I mean, you're a special dude. And thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks
for having me.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you made it to the West Coast. I mean, like that little story you told, I couldn't have done that without you. You know, like so generous. Like you let me borrow your Van Staal 200. It was really the first time I ever used a Van Staal, you know, and you told me I can't get a big one. You had about 280 yards, a 30-pound test on, and yeah, it did take me about a month to actually land one, but it was one of my best experiences of my life fishing, and like I'll never forget that. Just, you know, even when you took me into black dog tackle for that first time, and just the sights and the smells, and just walking over that walkway and seeing those tarpon, I'll never forget it. And I just want to thank you again for that. It was one of the best experiences, and like it's just so cool to have you around here. Well, yeah, I wish the fishing was a little better when you're here, but that's just it over here. We kind of grind over here. It's just, you know, when it's good, and when it's bad, the weather's good. So, you know, that's all we can ask for.
So let's touch on that a little bit. Obviously, we fish together now a couple different places in the U.S., you know, New York, New Jersey, California, Florida. Give me a little bit about the West Coast vibe. Like, I've spent some time over here. Everybody's super chill, but that wasn't fishing. Tell me a little bit about the surf fishing here on the West Coast.
Surf fishing here is sometimes difficult, like to say the least. Our access here is tough, you know, because a lot of the parking, they don't let us park much past 10 o'clock. So we got to find these little, you know, some of these little hidden parking spots and find our access. And like, we have places called like the long walk, and that's for a reason, you know. Sometimes we have to take a little long walk to get to the right spots. But we're used to it, and it's all worth it when it works out. And our culture is, we're pretty secret about our spots. Me, whatever. It's just, I'm used to pier fishing. I'm used to fishing shoulder to shoulder. So it's, as long as you stay consistent, I think you'll be okay. Like you'll kind of just hold your own. So I'm not, you know, the most secretive guy about the spots, but.
Well, tell me about, so you catch from the beach, you catch halibut, you obviously love striped bass.
Yeah.
There's something called the white ghost.
Yeah, we catch white sea bass. Yeah, like a lot of our target species off the beaches are pretty much halibut, white sea bass, stripers. Back in my little corner over at New Brighton, I catch like black sea bass, leopard sharks, and that's about all we target. And a lot of rockfish and stuff off the beach too is really nice.
So some of the things that I think are the same between the culture here and the East Coast, like exactly the same. We just ran into another hardcore surfcaster here, and the back of his truck looked like the back of my truck.
Yeah.
Like you got the bed, you got all the gear to go around.
He has his truck built out for fishing. We should have taken a little shot of it, but yeah, he is a hardcore surfcaster here in town. He's actually a local here. Like even though that I was born, you know, an hour away, it doesn't make me a local here. So I'm, you know, like we always say in Santa Cruz, you gotta be born there to be a local. And so like my territory pretty much ends at the Pajaro River, which is, you know, almost in eyesight from here. But yeah, when I come over to their side of town, I try to be respectful. I try not to like give up their secret spots. But you know, it just happens, and it's hard to keep a secret when you're catching fish. and you know, all it takes is one guy to tell one guy. And in this area, we always say everyone's 3 people apart. So, you know, we're only 3 people apart here. So it's really hard to keep a secret, but they do, and I you know, it's probably the same for you guys on the East Coast. Probably a little bit more. I heard you guys have sometimes 1,000 people fishing, and I was telling you earlier, I mean, I would have to put a newspaper ad out to get 1,000 people to come down here and fish. But I think that's a little bit different. Our culture's probably not a little bit smaller than the East Coast surf casting culture, and but it's, you know.
You touched on 2 more things that were exactly the same as the East Coast. Is you're not a local unless you're a local.
Yeah.
So I fish locations like Montauk a lot, and it's other places in New York, but specifically Montauk. So I've been fishing out there on and off for, I guess, 10 years. So I would think, like, I feel like when I'm fishing my spots out there, I'm local, but I'm far from local. The locals, you're born there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and these locals are really they're like the gatekeepers of the area. And like, same with my spots, you know, like over there, I gatekeep over where the beach turns into the cliffs, and you know, I remember fishing there I remember fishing there all by myself for years, and there's a campground over there, and these guys would come every year at the same time to go camping, and they would see me catch fish, and the next year they would bring rods, and they'd be like, help us out. And that was so enjoyable for me to like give them some tips, give them some gear, and they would throw out, and they would have these experiences when they were there. They would catch a fish, and then it was every year. I was almost like every week I would almost have a little scheduled fishing trip with some of these unlocal people, but they were great people. You know, they were there for the love of fishing. They just wanted to catch a fish, and then I was really happy to help them out, and that kind of spawned my private little piece of heaven into a fishing corner, you know, and because, you know, more and more people just hear about fish getting caught there, and more people start fishing there, and like, there's nothing you can do about it. And then obviously the internet came around, and you know, we always say there's no more secrets. There's no more secrets.
That's another cool part about surf fishing, and I think it's a camaraderie. It's a brotherhood. It's something that we see is when you see another person excited about fishing, you get excited.
Yeah.
Now, we're all secretive. Like, I don't want you standing in my spot. You don't want me standing in your spot. But you see a new guy, you want to help him out. You get pleasure in watching them catch fish. They then pass it on. And you guys out here are exactly as hardcore as the East Coast. Like, out the first night, 2 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden I see guys walking by, and they do the nod, like, don't talk too much, give you so that you have the same nod in New York as you got here in California. And that's really cool to see that just because there's a huge distance between us, these fish kind of bring us together.
Totally. And it's like, and the people that want to come out at 2 o'clock in the morning, like, they have a love for the fishing, you know. Like, I'm not going to be the one to tell them to take a hike, you know.
No, they got, they're crazy, matches are crazy. Who's going out at 2 o'clock in the morning?
You know, and I get hassled a lot. Like when I was in Florida, people would say, hey, I would be standing on a rock, and people would be like, oh, now everybody's going to be on that rock. And I would tell them, like, if someone knows about that rock, they already know about that spot. So, like, they you know, if someone recognizes it, then go ahead, come down and fish your spot. You know, like, if you recognize a rock or like some kind of background, then you know.
All right, so tell me a little bit more. You hold unofficially a couple line class world records. So where else, not exact locations, but what other species do you like to target? Where else do you like to fish? And obviously you could be on a boat anywhere catching these fish. Why do you want to do it with your feet on terra firma?
Yeah, I just like it. I like fishing from the shore. Like, I was always kind of like I always wanted to be kind of like a poor man's hero. I just wanted to show people that it didn't take much money to catch some of these fish, you know, and like, it was all about just being in the right place at the right time. And like, you know, forever I would use an ugly stick, you know, and like, it was unbreakable. So you can just, you know, just go out and spend $150 or something on a rod and reel, and just go out and catch a fish. Like, and over here there's so many different spots off the shore. Like, we do a lot of pier fishing, and like we do a lot of live bait and lure fishing off the piers, and we do a lot of lure fishing off the beaches. And then like, I also have a kayak, which I really enjoy. So yeah, I've never been like a really like boat guy. I never really been into like motors. I always kind of disagreed with people that was able to just kind of motor over and catch a fish.
Yeah, because it doesn't count.
It's just like it's just so much more gratifying when you're catching a fish just off the shore or off a pier, somewhere that it feels like anyone can do it. You know, if you just put the time and the effort into it. And that's all I always wanted to do. I just wanted to make it seem like anyone can come out and do this, what I'm doing. Obviously, I do it a lot more than like a lot of people, so that's what it kind of looks like I catch a lot of fish, but it's surprising how much I fish.
How much did you sleep this week?
I slept just a couple hours. I mean, just in the last couple of days, I've only gotten, maybe like 4 hours
How many
of
fish
sleep.
have you caught?
It's this week has been one of the slowest weeks all summer. I was thinking about that. I've had 3 slow weeks this summer, and this week hasn't been the worst week, but it's been probably the top 3 slowest weeks, unfortunately, for you guys here. But we still caught fish, and so so you can only imagine how my first and second slow week was. But and it happens. You just gotta kind of get past that, and don't get too down on yourself for not catching a fish, and just
grind.
Try to figure out what you can maybe change and go out the next night or maybe the next moon cycle and try to change something maybe. And that's how it is. You live and learn, and when you do get that fish or a fish of a lifetime, it's just like one of the greatest feelings. That's like one of my favorite times of life is just catching big fish and catching a great looking fish and then obviously getting a picture and and like I fish a lot by myself, so I don't get too many people that take pictures of me, but I take pictures with a GoPro and that's what I kind of been doing is I've always been into photography, so I kind of pride myself on my own pictures I take. So that's the kind of goes with my whole theory of like just get out there, fish, take your own pictures. Like you don't need a boat, you don't need other people. You can just go out and with the right gear, go get a picture of a fish and go get the whole experience, and a picture a lot of times says 1,000 words. And so like that's been my whole kind of goal for fishing is just being kind of self-sustained and just making it happen and like being in the right spot at the right time. And fortunately I've been in some great spots at the right time.
Thanks to you and Orlando, NorCal Cat, and some other guys, we were able to meet a real surf casting legend. I mean, a plug building legend, Mike Fixter.
Yes.
And fish with him, which was so exciting. And one thing that really blew my mind is when talking to Mike is, I didn't know you guys wetsuited here, which was wild. He was telling me about that.
Yeah.
And then the same way that he looks at the puzzle that we do on the East Coast, like I'm on my phone app all the time, Navionics, Wind Finder, Moon Phase, what's going on? But exactly what you said, the first day matched right up what Mike said. Like I'm putting the pieces together and Mike's, got 60, 70 years in the surf. And he's like, all right, let's go take a look. We need to find how big's the swell? How powerful is the swell? What's the time between? What's the tide? What's the wind? Where can we reach these fish? And it's a different puzzle than we put together on the East Coast, but it's the same.
Yes, exactly. And like back in his day and back in even like my day, we didn't have that technology. So we actually had to get out there, and the only way to figure it out is to go out there and look with our own eyes,
Well, you were able to, you said it before I even got here. I think we were in the car, he picked me up, we had some in and out. I mean, come on, West Coast. And we're heading over here, and you go, all right, we're gonna walk the beach, and it's gonna sound kind of strange. The swell is big, it's pretty big, but we have a really big shore break, so you gotta be able to hit the good water. You said when it looks good, cast.
Yes.
And immediately we started walking, and the swell would settle down, and you'd be like, looks good. Boom, hit, boom, fish.
Yes. And that's just like a real good rule of thumb, like when it's really rough out, like even if you're not in your right spot or spot you want to be at, like if it looks good, fish it, because like it could be a good possibility that the fish might think it looks good too, and so they might just go in there and like find a little food and you'd be there doing the right thing at the right time, and have a good chance of.
Now it's not striped bass, but let's talk a little bit about you fish from a ladder.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's surf casting too, and you hold the unofficial still line class world record for
For Lahan and cutthroat trout, like
Okay.
yeah, and that's at Pyramid Lake, Nevada, and that's on the Paiute Indian Reservation. And like, I've been fishing there for about 20 years, and I just had this thought in my mind that I want to catch a giant trout. You know, I knew that was one of the places I can catch like one of my biggest trout. And I've had this goal for a long time to catch like, you know, 3 of the biggest native trouts on the West Coast. I want to catch a, you know, 20-pound steelhead. I want to catch a 20-pound cutthroat and maybe a 20-pound bull trout, or a dolly barden they call it in Alaska. You know, I'll take a brown, but that's just kind of my whole winter phase is like a trout fishing. I do a lot of steelhead fishing, like back at my hometown over in Santa Cruz, and then Pyramid is a good place because I was able to go snowboarding and then fishing. So I'd snowboard on the, like, let's say the bad days, and then I'd fish on the nice days. And so and Pyramid Lake is just such a great location. It's about 45 minutes out of Reno, Nevada, and I can get there in about an hour and a half. I can be in Lake Tahoe, and I can be fishing at Pyramid in about an hour and a half. And that's another place too where you can catch a fish of a lifetime on any cast. And we do fish off ladders a lot. The water gets really cold there, so you don't really want to be standing in the water because it gets really cold there. It's the Paiutes even. I mean, it's just one of the most rugged high desert areas that I've ever fished. It's some people would want to get off their ladder and just go into their car and turn the heater on, but like, you know, like me, I try to like fish from sun up to sundown, and like that's why I think I have a lot of success there. And it's a long time in the making there. Like when I first started going there, I had no information. I would go into Crosby's Lodge over at Sutcliffe, and you know, I'd hear people talking, and when I walk in, the place would go silent. So it was just a really cool journey, like just learning how, like I started with spoons, and so I used to hang out with some guys that would tell me, you know, you got to cast really, really, really far. And so that was my whole deal. Like, okay, go there and cast really far, and they bite on all kinds of different retrieves. So it was just really cool to learn the spots and learn the different spoons. And then from there, I went to Marabou jigs. I unofficially broke a bunch of snowboarding world records I had in mind, and you know, almost died a few times. And living through that 3 seasons, I kind of retired to a certain extent, you know, and I was like, okay, I did what I wanted to do there. Now I want to catch the biggest trout of my life.
And so the accumulation of that was this year on your birthday weekend.
Yes, exactly. And so like it started last year too. Last year was, you know, after 18, 20 years was the first year I've hooked so many 20-pound trout there, but I've never like actually got one in and landed and weighed one. And it started with this whole process of me changing my whole style. I ended up paddling my kayak from Sutcliffe across Pyramid, around the Pyramid, and back to Sutcliffe. Is about 13.5 miles. No one's done it before that anyone knows about. I was one of the first guys to paddle across. And it was a beautiful day. I did it, and in that time, I kind of forgot. I tried to forget everything I thought I knew. I wanted to start over. I wanted to like start from. I wanted to just. I always said I wanted to do a full revision of everything I thought I knew, and so I started with a rod I thought I wanted to buy. My problem was I was getting these fish to my ladder, but I was farming them at my ladder. I was putting too much pressure on them, so I needed a more parabolic rod. I just needed to just absorb that last head shake where I can either net it or get it in on the shore, and so I went from there, and like, you know, and I ended up finding a Lamaglass rod, and like that's how I got hooked up with Lamaglass. I was so pumped on these rods. I found this rod. I was using let's say a $75 rod. It was a Lamaglass too, but I was using a $75 Lamaglass. And I would go to Reno to get some more, you know, fishing gear, and I would see this rod. It was $280, and I was like, why is it $280? You know, and finally I pulled the trigger and I bought this $289 rod, and I took it back to Pyramid, and the day I took it back, I caught the biggest trout of my life, and so that kind of showed me, okay, like I'm on the right direction, you know, like I'm gonna have to spend a little bit of money here and go for a little bit nicer gear to get some of the nicer fish, and that's how it all became. I just kind of started just learning little by little, like a whole new way of fishing. And I started marabou jig fishing, and then I found the secret. I came up with my own style of jig fishing, and the rest is history. I unofficially broke the 8-pound line class record last year, and they didn't give it to me because I didn't have the right scale. They told me to get the right scale. So obviously this year, 2 years ago, I did the 8-pound line class record, and last year, obviously I didn't buy the right scale, and then like on my birthday, I broke the 6-pound line class record.
How big was that fish?
I believe it was I think it was like 25 pounds. I gotta have to look it up.
So that's interesting too. I mean, it's a totally different species. It's freshwater, not saltwater, but it's in the mind when you switch from a fisherman to a hunter, I think. And it doesn't matter what coast you're on or what you're fishing for. Like you said, you take everything you know and you throw it away, and you start thinking about what gear do I need, where do I be. You just go through a transformation of, oh man, I remember an old timer told me once, like, you're going to go through these transformations. I didn't believe it. They said, first, you're just going to want to catch fish. Then you're going to want to catch lots of fish. And then you're going to want to catch a big fish. And then eventually, you're going to come back around to where you're just happy catching fish again. But I think that hardest transformation is going from catching lots of fish to what you just talked about.
Yes.
Changing my gear, changing how I'm going to fish, changing where I fish, going through the growing pains of not catching anything to hearing about bites. But like Mike Fixter said, they do that here too. They change, you guys do it too. You change your lures. We're all the same. You change how you think, where you fish. And there are 40-pound fish that swim right here.
Yes.
And it's amazing. And I know I take it up a lot of your time, but you are part fish, Ryan. I mean, the glow that came over your face when we talked about the aquarium here, like that's all you could talk about. And then watching you interact, like I watched. You were talking to the fish, and they were talking to you.
Well, I'm a Pisces, so that's one thing. And all my birth signs are water signs. I'm not really into that kind of thing, but somehow it correlates to my lifestyle. And I grew up by the water, and I've always been a waterman. And the aquarium is just one of those special places because, like, my family, we were members. The first year was open, and I was a member there for about 25 years. So going in there, it's changed over all the years, but going in there, it's just like one of my happy places. And again, and it's just brought me so much joy that you guys actually went there with me, and it was just. But that's probably why you saw me glowing there. It was just a great experience, and you couldn't have said it much better about about how just like how you want to catch a fish and more fish, and you want to get the bigger fishes, and.
But when you're in that aquarium, right, and you see one of those fish, and they look at you too. They looked at me like my striped bass. You
had striped bass coming up. It was
But and I feel like sometimes you're out on the water too, and you can. I had a friend tell me that you can will it to happen.
Power of manifestation. Like I can't prove it works, but I know it works, and I'm not some kind of hippy dippy guy, even though I have long hair. But like there's certain things I believe, and the power of manifestation is one. If you have the right thought process and the right state of mind, anything can happen. And like I was telling you about Pyramid Lake, certain areas you go in with that right mindset, and those areas will bless you. Yeah. And it's so cool how that works. I can't explain it, and like maybe someday they can, but like you always gotta like go in with the right mindset, and like and I believe it works, and I believe that's I hate to give away my secrets, but that's one of my biggest secrets is just being the right mindset, and like don't take no for an answer. Don't take this is it, like I told you before, there's a I'm in a parallel universe somewhere where I've slept in, and I've left early, and in this life I decided to wake up early and not leave early and just grind, and I believe that there's a certain aspect of trials and tribulations that go along with fishing. Like there's some pain and suffering that you have to go through to like before you get that gratitude of catching that fish. I met guys in Florida where the first time they go out, they catch a 40+ inch snook, and they've never caught it again. Same with Pyramid Lake. Guys, their second time, they catch a 20-pounder, and the rest of the time they're going there, they never get anything that close again. So it almost jades them.
But I think that's what you're crazy and my crazy and everybody watching this. our crazy is that you want to go through that suffering.
Yes.
You want to go through putting the time in, because the success that you feel, whatever it is, the size of the fish you catch, the smile on your buddy's face, whatever that brings us makes us special.
Exactly.
And it makes it all worth it.
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes us surfcasters, and it makes our whole community super tight. You may not like the guy down the beach from you, you may not like seeing people, but that one little head nod says, hey brother, I know you're out here at 4 a.m. and I know those fish are talking to you just like they're talking to me.
Exactly.
And if we make one more cast, we can make it happen.
Exactly.
And dude, thanks for being here. And I think before we're gonna get some in and out.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a halibut sandwich.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe going to make you a halibut sandwich.
And then one more cast.
Yeah.
Because I don't gotta fly out till 7.
Perfect.
Hey Brian, man. Thanks for having me over on your side, dude.
Great.
Oh, man. All right, brother. Thank you very much.